Hey Scott, how you doing? Welcome.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thank you.
Well, well,
Doing pretty
thanks for
well.
joining. It's full disclosure. We have not talked before. We haven't met before. Yet I am already a huge fan. I looked at some of your articles, your blog posts, and just the core value proposition of structural. And congratulations on what you've built. I'm excited to listen and learn from you. And I understand you have a presentation to kick us off. Yeah.
I do, yeah, and we've been excited about the chance to connect. You know, when we talk about the intersection of people analytics and the future of work, this organization and community comes up a lot. And I think everyone, when they hear this presentation, having listened to you just now, will get a sense of just some of the alignment and the role we play within some of the opportunities that you outlined. So thanks for having us here, and we'll do a little presentation, and then excited to chat more.
Absolutely. We'll get after it and look forward to listening and learning.
All right, thanks. Um, you know, if you just watch the commercial, a lot of the punchline has kind of already been shared. But I'll just start by saying that we are at Structural very focused on a very simple idea, which is that it's really critical inside organizations to connect people to opportunity. So that's what we think matters most for individuals. That's what we think strengthens organizations. And particularly in this time of remote work and disconnection, we want to connect people not just to each other, but to the opportunities that advance their careers and the organizations they're working within. I come at this from a perspective as somebody who's been leading organizations for a long time, working with organizations of all sizes. We launched Structural in 2017, but it was the culmination of a lot of reflection and work around how we could make the future of work better. And the last company I founded was kind of at the end of the dot-com boom, and we founded a company called Gov Delivery, which was basically email and digital marketing for the public sector. So if you've used digital marketing tools, you're familiar with those. I'll share that as I was building that company, I was frustrated with how good marketing was getting and how good we were at using data about customers. And yet, even as a company growing from 0 to 250 people in my case, or looking at the organizations that were very large that we were serving, they didn't understand much about the people that worked within their organizations. So Al talked through all the barriers that get in place, the fact that you need to curate data and do a lot of other things to organize it to make it useful. That's what I experienced as a leader. And we came up with all kinds of hacks to deal with it. But after that last company was sold, I really wanted to take on something that could make work better and make the future of work better for the millions of people who are working right now, working every day, and for whom work is just a critical part of their lives. 40 hours plus a week is a lot of time that we devote to something, and it should be as good as possible. Just kind of giving you the context, when you first look at the work we do, you'll think about it as sort of a really powerful internal LinkedIn. I like to frame it as, my entire goal is to bring that power that we all are familiar with on the outside in LinkedIn and social networks and other places, and just bring it inside the complex enterprises we serve. And because work is pretty consistent across a lot of industries, or at least the work as it's affected by the things we care about and do, we work with all kinds of different companies of different sizes. So we'll circle back to the approach we take with technology, but I want to share a little more about the principles, and just start with a reflection on the pace of change. So we all are kind of noticing and hearing about and experiencing what's changing because of COVID. And I would say that some parts of work are changing forever. And I don't necessarily have the same view of this as everyone. I think some people are just realizing that you can work remotely, but we've really seen that trend actually taking off in the numbers for the last 5 years. And I think that COVID's only going to accelerate and reframe it. So I'll start there. People are talking about working from home, but the reason we think that concept is going away is that I really think it's going to be more about working from anywhere and getting the job done where you need to get it done. Some people have to be in a manufacturing environment, but actually, if you're out interviewing a software engineer 5 years from now, if you actually expect them to show up at an office, you're going to have to explain why. And so I think work from home as a concept will actually disappear. I think that training budgets, as sort of the cornerstone of how we think about learning, are really getting to be a dated concept and something that will disappear in terms of being how employees judge whether their employer is investing in them. I think those investments will happen in a much more dynamic way. Work-life balance, which we all have cared about and embraced, has really fallen away in favor of an integrated work-life experience. And I think that's great. I think that a lot of people struggle to hold those things in balance. And so that's our observation there. I also think that company-owned career tracks where you join somewhere and stay forever and move up the ladder are going away. And the idea of a review of your job, of your performance taking place on an annual basis, I think is a very dated concept. And when we look at how millennials react to that and how Gen Z reacts to that, we know that that concept has extraordinary flaws. I think it always has, but that it's going away forever too. So that's kind of the sort of, I guess, shock to the system in our mind. We also know that there's some really important things that are now more important. And the most interesting one of those to me is that there is an incredible body of research that the most innovative companies really invest in teams and teams of teams. So you kind of think of this network of people collaborating to get things done in a very fluid, agile, efficient, responsive way, where actually teams get formed and reformed very quickly. And sometimes that's driven more from the inside out or the individual out than it is from the top down. And it matters. But now in this crisis, it's more important than ever. You know, Al just finished talking about the teams that are being set up to respond to this event. And obviously, strong networks of teams matter more than ever. And I think we're going to learn that lesson and continue it into the future. And then there's this kind of weird situation we all, I think, saw where at least knowledge workers had a reaction when the crisis first happened. If they hadn't experienced remote work, they were like, gosh, we made it work. Our company adjusted. We got teams going. We set up Zoom. My wife's a physician. She started doing virtual visits for the first time, and it didn't seem that bad. Well, 4 months into it, we're realizing that taking work from the office and just moving it remotely works initially. You have existing relationships, work habits, projects, and other things set up, but that there are real challenges as time starts to pass. Where do those come from? You need to collaborate with new people. You need to expand your network. People need to onboard into the organization. And that creates a whole new kinds of challenges that I think we're just now starting to experience, and that will play a much bigger role going forward. So in reaction to that, it's like, I don't know if it sounds bad to you or it sounds great where the future's heading, but our goal is to be part of making the future of work better. And these are the principles that I think about in doing that. One is a real focus on empowerment of the individual, because we know that empowerment equals acceleration. People make faster decisions, they get better work done, they're more creative, they find solutions that others didn't even think of, that their boss never even thought to assign to them, and that matters. Second, the power of networks over hierarchies. It's interesting, kind of like taking remote work and just a regular work and just moving it remotely. I think that a lot of people think of digital tools, and the first reaction is, gosh, we've got all these new tools. It's going to be really nice to kind of reinforce the hierarchical workflow and the org chart. And I think that is a major misstep in taking advantage of digital transformation. We believe that digital opens up new opportunities for networks to be strengthened, to be more dynamic, to be better than ever. And then the final thing is democratization of opportunity. So a lot of you listening to this will have heard of different kinds of opportunity marketplaces or gig marketplaces, even internal job boards. We believe that is going to go to an entirely new level where opportunity can be embedded in the work experience in new and awesome ways. And it matters because disconnected companies tend to lose and networked, connected companies tend to win. And it's because it's easier to navigate a networked organization. It's easier to find help when you need to close a deal. It's easier to onboard, and you don't get that feeling of siloed relationships by location, by floor, by team, by house, I guess now, you have opportunity embedded everywhere. And so that's kind of where we start principles wise. We know, so now it's like, well, what can technology do to solve this problem or to take advantage of this opportunity and these principles? And that's where we're at, just a really exciting time. If you look, LinkedIn's already using data and networks to connect people and unlock potential in job searches and external opportunities. We actually kind of think about then bringing together that sort of concept of LinkedIn as a place to connect and find with the concept of opportunity. And on LinkedIn, you might find a new job. Deloitte's done incredible work and research around bringing that same kind of opportunity in-house. So we've shown with LinkedIn, you can connect, you can find a job. There's some evidence that bringing that inside has a lot of power. And we asked the question, then kind of reflecting on what LinkedIn's been able to do well. Are the opportunities outside your organization better than the opportunities inside? Because if they are, that's a real problem. And I think that when we started building and thinking about technology was the standard we wanted to hold ourselves to and hold our clients to. So whole set of opportunities, sort of some principles for how to make the future better. We've seen how things kind of work on LinkedIn. There's some good ideas about how to bring that in-house, but how do you do it? And the goal for us is to bring that power inside. And what we've seen is that when you do it right, it works. So I'm going to explain how you do it in a second, but I want to just kind of describe why it matters so much more internally than just in a job search on LinkedIn. The reason is that you're working 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year, maybe 48 weeks a year if you're lucky. And having connectivity in that experience is a secret weapon in onboarding for Lauren. It helps Jess succeed and close more deals. It allows Michael to connect his teams and be more successful as a leader. And think about that kind of impact versus that sort of once every 3-year job search or whatever you accomplish with those outside networks. So it would have been nice if we could have tackled inside the workplace first, but we're getting around to it, and that's the role we're trying to play. And the unique thing about being inside is that, and this is going to really get to what Al has just been talking about, is that there is a treasure trove of transactional data. And our approach is to look at that transactional data, sort of the middle layer, and then humanize it or organize it around people. We all know the concept of a directory. We kind of think of a directory as maybe a phone number, maybe a kind of out-of-date resume in the old days. But in Structural's case, we take that data that's created in real time and we roll it around people and organize it in a directory that's useful to everybody. And so that's been our secret weapon, is taking the data that already exists, making profiles for everyone in an organization, keeping them up to date, letting people edit and make them better and add to them. But that's the starting point, and empowering every individual with that. Then the second component of it is beginning to organize opportunities inside the company. So if I have an opportunity, I can go search for people and try to find and connect them to it. But if I want to just post the opportunity, we use that same data to connect the right people to it, whether the opportunity is a simple gig or an opportunity to participate in a sales referral program or help solve a problem, or something as sort of top end as a whole new job opportunity. So that's our approach. When you take this data from system silos, from all that transactional data Al talked about, and bring it in, the gasps we get are really rewarding. So you create a profile for Jennifer, and the first time she opens it, it's full and awesome. And that is because this data has proliferated in enterprises. We're better at working with it and dealing with it than we ever have been before. The tools are better, and we can help a lot of organizations just leap forward in how they're using data and how they're empowering individuals and managers to use it in real time. And you kind of, in an ideal scenario, you're kind of replacing this old, tough to navigate organization where emails went out into the void, asking a question of the team, can somebody help me? And you replace that with a rapidly searchable database where somebody can find the right people immediately. Then we put another layer on top of it, and this was through a lot of trial and error, where people can do more sophisticated searches. You can see here I'm searching on capacity, department, region, language, and I can find a group of people. And we don't try to be sort of that planning based people analytics software. There's so many amazing choices in that arena. But bringing this data together and organize it in real time has real power for individuals on a day-to-day basis. So imagine doing that first search. I've just connected with somebody who might be able to help me. But in a more sophisticated search, I can even quickly shift and visualize all the data I have on people, find out who has time to help, who has insight. And we aren't locking this into HR or the data team or managers. In the vast majority of our clients, every employee has access to this level. There's obviously a lot of permissions and privacy and security things we do to make sure it's the right kind of data. But imagine employees and people in your organization have access like this in real time every day. Once you have that in place, we've been making a lot of progress now, better organizing opportunities in the platform so we can really track the impact of people making connections. This gives you a little visual of how that looks and the expanded view we take of it. So unfortunately, if you take an old school view of opportunity, you think we're going to have opportunity in the workplace, but it's going to be about getting people new jobs. And we take a very expanded view that I think is much more consistent with what employees want, where they can actually find an opportunity for this afternoon just as easily as they might be able to find a larger job or project opportunity. Something as simple as retweeting a podcast episode to help support the company and support the company. A lot of ROI around time savings, closing deals, and engaging teams. So whatever you invested in connectivity, these are the areas where we've seen people get real ROI. And if you're in HR and trying to justify investing in something or connecting people, I think it's really a good time to think about elevating your return on investment story beyond turnover and recruitment into this kind of business support issues, because you're really the best positioned to make that case and to bring together some of the business partners internally to do it. And this is the way our clients have seen the ROI. And I'll finally just say the coolest thing about being in software right now is the consumerization of software inside the enterprise and inside companies. So we've all gotten used to using these kind of platforms. That means your employees come pre-trained, and that's awesome. They know how to use things better than ever. And if the vendors you work with, and I hope we meet this standard, get the job done right, the software starts ready to use and it's intuitive to use. So the time frame from deciding to use it to getting values really quick. And hopefully that gives you enough of an overview. And I'd love to kind of hear your perspective on it, Al, and just start a conversation.
Well, Scott, I'm really impressed, really taken aback, really stoked that you brought this into the world. And there's a variety of reasons that I'll just highlight right off the bat. Is I've been in the space for close to 20 years, and I have seen it be all about executives' organizational agenda, and a few things that you said, consistent with what employees want, is something that you talked about there at the end, and the nature of work and matching the actual work with who's most appropriate to do that work. In other words, people have been struggling for a long time. I got this, I don't know how to do this, I got to go relearn this, when in fact somebody across the way might be very well suited. They might have the capacity. I love that you use that construct, because that's something in remote work, even before it was a challenge. But do people have the time to actually do it? Do they have the requisite skills? So that has been grossly lacking for a long time. And given that we're in this big reset, given the fact that we're trying to understand the worker experience to a greater level, how are we going to resource them to prioritize? And how are we as an organization going to get stuff done? And so that's what I see you bringing to the organizations that you serve. And so is that a fair summary? Anything that you want to call out? And as I ask you that question, I also want to ask this, is like, at the end of it, like, who's your buyer? I mean, this talks about operations, talks about HR, talks about culture. Like, who's actually going to say, we need this?
Yeah. Well, on the first point, your summary is really good. I mean, I think that different organizations kind of make the case for structural in different ways, and that's been interesting. And that gets to who the buyer is. If the buyer is a staffing coordinator and they just need to bring data together more effectively and have it available on demand, that person's going to have a pretty clear ROI case up front, and they can expand use from there. If you're in an organization that just had an employee survey, and we're all going to have these now, and everybody said they feel siloed, that's a really common buyer for us, either in HR or in leadership. The interesting thing is why you buy something and what you use it for can be very different. And so the justification to buy structural is often pretty narrow. We want to digitize resumes. We want to be less siloed. We want to have more of our data put together so we can make better real-time decisions on staffing. Really common use is, salespeople lose deals and waste a ton of time trying to find help in their organization. So that's a nice kind of simple ROI case. Then you put it in, and we've been told this by one of our clients that's a bank, it's the only service that's used every day by the bank tellers and the bank president. They may not be using it the exact same way, but as the bank president visits a branch, looking up everybody, figuring out what's going on, going into a meeting, seeing what people are working on project-wise, making those decisions. The bank teller might just be trying to solve a really small problem or figure out who the new colleague is who just joined next to them. And so how people buy it and why they buy it and how they use it are different. I'd say there's more consistency in how they use it day to day, whereas the buying of this kind of platform that affects so many people can be a lot of different kinds of buyers. I'll add one other thing that I'm sure you have more experience with than me, which is that we have found, and this is true of all HR related software, that it scares people because it touches people it touches so many people in an organization. And that's why these implementations take forever in HRIS and even if you push people analytics out, it can take a long time. Oh my gosh, Al's going to be able to see something he shouldn't see, whatever.
Yeah.
Our approach has been
Absolutely.
First, if you have 1,000 people, put 1,000 people in the platform, but don't even tell them about it. Let a handful of people use it and start to get comfortable with it, and then expand in a more measured way. And that's worked really well. I'll say this, we had to learn a little because the first couple of times we're like, you'll be able to launch it in 10 days. And that's true, but it's a very scary concept to put something new in front of 1,000 employees in 10 days. So we try to let people ease into it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it makes sense, and it is a shift. And I want to play this scenario to you. Going back to one of your initial slides, we have this hierarchical organization that has been the legacy mindset for eons now. And for me, that's a bit about the should. You should communicate with them. You should communicate with them. And if there's anything organic, it was within your sphere of visibility, sometimes literal visibility, where if I'm a bank teller, these are the people I'm physically interacting with, and I might get one of their connections. Hey, I'm trying to solve this problem. Well, I can't help you because I don't have the time or expertise, but so-and-so can. What I hear you are doing is that you're enabling that at scale. I need to get this done. I can now put this piece of work out and find somebody in real time who has the capacity, skills, and interest to do that work. Is that a fair way to play back to you?
Yeah, it's perfect, and I'm really passionate about it because I built my last company. The millennials kind of took it over in 2009, and it started going really poorly initially. And when we kind of embraced this less hierarchical view, things just took off. And you see that happen inside a lot of companies that kind of flip their thinking in their model. So that idea of expanding really matters. And also add that, for an individual to feel like they have a bigger network inside their company is a very empowering feeling to have as an individual. It gives them a greater sense of mobility. So it affects onboarding. It affects just employee engagement. You don't feel trapped and stuck. And it also opens up, I think, a lot of learning and mentoring opportunities that are exciting, whether you've been with the company for 15 years or zero. yeah, your take on it is really accurate. And since we can track all the traffic in the system, we can see how people use it. And they use it to expand their networks and to learn their companies and all of those things.
Well, I get excited because I think about the effect on productivity, on engagement, on even self-worth, because particularly in remote work, correct me if I'm wrong from your perspective, and this is something I'm very passionate about as well, is that we as human beings, beyond the basics, is we want to be seen, we want to be heard, and we want to be empowered. And what I'm hearing is that this is what your solution brings. It's like, hey, I have this skill. I want to be seen. I want to be found. And of course, I can find others reciprocally. I want to be heard. I want to get my thought leadership out there. I want to get my ideas out there. And I want to be empowered to do stuff. So if I am found or if I'm finding somebody, there's a transaction of worth there. And so I see your solution bringing that about. And, frankly, you going back in time, and I know you came from McKinsey as well. I understand you were trying to, for many years, and I do not know to what degree McKinsey is successful at this, but match the appropriate person with the appropriate work. And now I see you're bringing a solution to the market that does that at scale. So again, kudos to you. So I'm really excited to learn more and talk with you more. So as we start to wrap up, how can listeners learn more about you personally as well as what you're doing there at Structural?
Yeah, obviously structural.com is an easy place to learn more about the company, but I am on Twitter at smburns and try to tweet at least a little bit about these issues. And Scott, easy to remember, Scott, SCOTT at structural.com. And I like engaging with people, even if you feel like your company is not the right size or something else. We have so many conversations that we can often be a good resource. And I know you're taking this approach too. This is just a really good time for us all to help each other and contribute to the learning and try to learn ourselves. So I'm happy to have a conversation directly with anybody that hears this and thinks we could learn from each other.
Yeah, and I'll do my part to get the word out to Scott, because I believe this is imminent. There's going to be variants of this that evolve, but you've created something that I think is going to be part of the new normal, whether that's next week or next year or 5 years from now for a particular organization remains to be seen. But I truly believe that you're solving something that needs to be solved for. So congratulations again, and look forward to talking more in the near future. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. See you soon.
All right. Be well.